Playing pinball all night long. Oh, fuck off! Oh shit, extra ball. Yeah. Playing pinball. Oh, fuck off!
That's a lot of fish.
Hi everyone, James Stephanie Sterling, professional slaggermuffin, hoping that the array of blinking lights and background buzz of this fucking thing distracts you just enough to not be too critical of the fact that I'm not wearing a wig on the show for the first time in years now. Aha! Yeah, I'm going to film an extra little insert fee, so just keep the camera rolling, because I don't want people to think that this is broken, because it's not. Because this is a top quality bit of merchandise. It's got a replica Zilla in it. The best Godzilla. But no, it's just flickering because it's not playing with the camera's frame rate. Unfortunately, we can't just talk about my 1998 Matthew Broderick Godzilla pinball machine all day, even though I'd much prefer doing that over having to talk about Square fucking Enix again. Yeah, again. Oh, it got worse. It got worse. You know, I really didn't want to do another video about Square Enix this week. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love pissing gasoline on everything that company stands for and tossing a match, but we just got done taking a massive shit all over the shower of bastards last week. And I at least wanted a palate cleanser before returning to the EA of Japan. I tried to find something that fired me up more, something more appropriate for discussion, but given the nature of this series and the topics I cover, I couldn't not tear into the latest shenanigans of these environmentally dangerous fraudsters. Honestly, Square Enix needs to get in the fucking bin. So anyway, you remember last week when we talked about how Square Enix keeps releasing desperate, money-grubbing, aggressively monetized video games before cancelling them mere months after release? Well, something wonderfully hilarious and perfectly coincidental happened in a spot of excellent timing that justified the entirety of my criticism. Literally the moment I posted my video about Square Enix's early game terminations, news broke that Square Enix had terminated another game early. Yes, after ending support for Babylon's Fall, Chocobo GP, and Final Fantasy VII The First Soldier, each after less than a year or just over a year beyond launch, Square Enix has added Bravely Default Brilliant Lights, which it's shutting down after just 13 months of existence. Unsurprisingly, this was yet another mobile game that I couldn't blame you for never knowing about. I hadn't heard of the dumb fucking thing until Square Enix said it was dropping support for it. Even less surprisingly, it was yet more freemium awfulness, another flaky cum stain drying against the matted and mangy mons pubis of the video game industry. It contained gacha elements for the acquisition of weapons, a selection of purchasable cosmetic items, and it sold a scamtastic premium currency known as Mithril, just like Chocobo GP did. You know, I used to like the word Mithril until Square Enix associated it with the exploitation of vulnerable people, and that is what microtransactions are. As I've argued before, it's a clear case of preying upon children and the neurodivergent, especially targeting those with ADHD and autism, who are particularly susceptible to the psychological manipulation that goes into these digital swindles. But we've gone over this. The point is that Square Enix are fucking predators. All these opportunistic rip-off merchants are. God damn it, they ruined the word Mithril for me. And just like with Babylon's Fall, Chocobo GP, and The First Soldier, these microtransactions lend an extra air of nastiness to Bravely Default's default. Like all of these live services and free-to-play games, this racket traded off the idea that it was an ongoing experience worth financially investing in. The whole idea is that games such as this will hook you and keep you engaged for a long time, convincing you that you should spend money on it because of this very fact. It is, like I suggested a moment ago, an investment. At least that's the idea behind the con. At least with Brilliant Light, Square Enix will be refunding any unused mithril purchases, something that can't be said for other games it's abruptly shuttering. But those who have already used theirs, believing they were building something as part of an ongoing experience, are essentially hosed. As with Babylon's Fall, as with Chocobo GP, as with The First Soldier, players were suckered into spending money on a dead service, something Square Enix was never committed to and has clearly been willing to drop the moment such products fail to make billions of dollars. The question becomes, why in the blue fuck-damned hell should anybody ever trust a Square Enix live service or freemium game again? Across all these games, Square Enix may have burnt millions of people by now, plus the 12 people who played Babylon's Fall. Why on earth should anybody give a single solitary cent to this company's in-game economies in future, knowing they could be vaporized at a moment's notice and their purchases rendered effectively useless? I mean, quite frankly, Square Enix oughtn't have the goddamn fucking nerve to ever release a live service or free-to-play game again after this. To do so would be fucking atrocious. A shocking display of arrogance. But it will. In fact, it's gonna do worse, because Square Enix is shockingly arrogant, and it's run by wretched cunts. Speaking of wretched cunts, time to move on to our second big subject and Square Enix president Yosuke Matsuda. Yes, that jumped up fraudster is back again with his annual drivel, sort of like a UK monarch's Christmas speech, or when Kevin Spacey used to release those creepy-ass videos on Christmas Eve after he became persona non grata. It looks like Matsuda is gearing up to make a yearly event of his tone-deaf, pompous, and downright vulgar messages, promising to fuck up the game industry even further than it already has been. We know that Square Enix kicked off 2022 by promising, well, I prefer saying threatening, to push cryptocurrency, NFTs, and associated blockchain dumbfuckery down all our throats, gleefully praising the sick concept of play to earn, and ignoring everybody who knows non-fungible tokens are a complete and utter lie perpetuated by hoaxers and hustlers. Well, the publisher's weasel-in-chief has done it again, stating for 2023 that the throat-pushing will continue. Also, having just said it, I feel I should apologise to weasels for likening Yosuke Matsuda to them. Weasels are cute. Matsuda's a stupid fucking dickhead. We are most focused on blockchain entertainment, to which we have devoted aggressive investment and business development efforts, said the stupid fucking dickhead. Looking externally, I think it is fair to say that blockchain gained significant recognition as a field in 2022, as evidenced by Web 3.0 becoming a firmly established buzzword among business people. However, the year also saw volatility in the cryptocurrency and NFT, non-fungible token, market that tracked the dramatic shifts in the macroeconomy described above. The latter half of the year in particular produced a somber string of news stories with blockchain connections, including the scandalous bankruptcy filing of FTX in November. Haha! A somber string of news stories with blockchain connections. That is an exceptionally squirmy and cowardly way to address the fact that the blockchain's been so deeply drenched in lies, scams, and outright theft that the two are quite definitely intrinsically linked. Almost as if this crypto nonsense was fucking flim-flam to begin with. God, what a fucking prick. New technologies and frameworks lead to innovation, but they also create considerable confusion. Having ridden out such societal tides, some such technologies and frameworks gradually become part of people's lives. Ugh, that's just fucking insidious. He's basically admitting that corporations slowly push these things onto us as part of a normalization process, acclimating the public to their horrid schemes after a period of controversy. Kind of like game publishers did with microtransactions and battle passes, to the point where they're now an expected part of mainstream products rather than the sickening aberrations they always have been. Multiple blockchain gaming events held overseas recently produced more active discussion than ever before about what makes the games exciting
exciting and what their user community looks like. Twat. The market was driven more by speculative investors than by gamers through 2021. In other words, the content that was at the forefront was created based on the premise that blockchain and NFT should result in monetization. However, in the wake of the aforementioned turbulence in the cryptocurrency industry, there is now a trend to view blockchain technology as a mere means to an end and to discuss what needs to happen to achieve the end of delivering new experiences and excitement to customers. I see this as a very beneficial development for the future growth of the industry. Oh, and this is some funny shit too. Here, Matsuda is trying to pretend that he and his shitbag outfit were separate from the speculators who sought to use NFTs for financial gain. This is despite the company's track record of fleecing its users, overtly monetizing as many aspects of a product as it can, already embracing NFTs to get richer quicker, and literally praising ideas like play to earn last year, a notion built literally around monetized content. Now he tries to present his House of Scum as a bunch of excited innovators looking merely to use the blockchain as a way to make video games more exciting. What a fucking sham. What a crooked fucking ploy this all is. Our group has multiple blockchain games based on original IPs under development, some of which we announced last year, and we are undertaking preparations that will enable us to unveil even more titles this year. And with that, we've arrived, dear friends, at the sweetest plum. Square Enix's promise to shovel out blockchain games are literally rooted in the concept of investment. Remember earlier in the video what I said about investing in Square Enix games?
Let's have a flashback sequence, shall we? Cue the wavy screen effects. I'm not going to do that joke where people go blah, 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 blah. It makes me cringe.
The question becomes, why in the blue fuck-damned hell should anybody ever trust a Square Enix live service or freemium game again? Across all these games, Square Enix may have burnt millions of people by now, plus the 12 people who played Babylon's Fall. Why on earth should anybody give a single solitary cent to this company's in-game economies in future, knowing they could be vaporized at a moment's notice and their purchases rendered effectively useless? Yosuke Matsuda's promise to produce blockchain games came out at almost the exact same fucking time as Square Enix revealed the abrupt closure of Bravely Default Brilliant Lights. After a year in which it killed off at least 3 monetized service games a matter of months after each one's release, Square Enix does indeed have the unmitigated gall, the vociferous temerity to place its focus on producing more monetized service games, only this time with the added fraudulence of cryptocurrency, a scam on top of a scam. Nasty fucking things. The shamelessness is off the goddamn charts. I'd accuse Square Enix of lacking self-awareness, but I have to believe they're fully cognizant of what they're bloody doing. If not, they're a bunch of fucking morons, which, considering they're corporate executives, isn't a mutually exclusive condition. Nah, worse than being unaware. They just don't give a shit. They don't care how hypocritical they are, how insulting this all is, how dangerous, disgusting, and artistically bankrupt NFTs are. Hell, they don't even care that crypto has been routinely exposed as the untrustworthy domain of the terminally fraudulent, because Square Enix is fraudulent. It's run by frauds, it serves frauds, it sells frauds. Like I said last week, and will doubtless find myself needing to say again, please, for the love of Mum-Ra, do not trust Square Enix. They've demonstrated time and time again they're unworthy of it, that they'll throw it back in your face after drowning you in spit. They do not deserve your faith. They're active betrayers of faith. And they're pricks. Hi, if you're in Leeds and have nothing better to do, which let's face it, you don't, this Saturday I'll be there for True Grit Wrestling, where I will be fighting Nathan Black, the twat who did this.
Oh, Sterling, watch out!
Hey, come on now! I'm a sexy starfish!
And this. Seriously, this one's gonna be pretty damn vicious. So yeah, Saturday 14th in Leeds. You can get details at True Grit Wrestle on social media, and tickets from ringsideworld.co.uk. And I'll probably be going for a celebratory drink up the wharf when I'm done giving him a massive planet cracker.
I do have to say, I'm low-key disturbed at the re-emergence of NFT dialogue. Square Enix said it themselves in that Matsuda letter. There's a period of controversy, and then it just sort of becomes an accepted part of people's lives. It's almost like they all got burned, they all got publicly humiliated, the crypto bros, last year, and now that the dust has settled, they're trying to push back into it again, at least when they're not masturbating over AI art. Yeah, we're going to get to that in a future video. I must confess I am a little bit nervous, a little bit skittish about the fact that Square Enix is remaining so bullish on this, that it's not been deterred by the fact that the market crashed hilariously last year, that NFTs failed in front of everybody after just a few months. I'm just slightly skeeved out by their commitment to this, although I must ask once again, as I do of other companies like Ubisoft that still want to glom on to this failed, disastrous scam, which of these executives invested? Which of these executives already put their money into the scam in the hopes of scamming others? I guess we will find it. Well, no, we won't find out. They're going to play that close to their chest. But fuck them anyway, is the point. Fuck them anyway, thank God for me.
Oh shit, I should have said thank Godzilla for me. It was right there. Craig, how could you let me fuck that up, you dick?
Square Enix, get in the bin. Wrong side. There. I'm going to play my pinball. Go on, go on, go on, go on. Up the wobbly ramp.